What drew your attention first hour that we were talking about?
A bunch of things. First of all, good morning to you guys. I'm sorry I'm not in Milford, so I can't get some of that meat on Friday. That just makes you feel good about the weekend. I went to the game last night, Dan, and yes, it's a bit of a humble brag, but it also gave me different perspective. Look, KD was so far and away the best player on the floor. Even LeBron mentioned it really after the game, and I just don't think there's a solution for him. I'm with you. I don't think there'll be a sweep. But, Vegas had it as 6.5 games as the over-under. And I said on my show and on Colin's show, I thought that was an easy under bet. And I'm even more confident of it now just because you tell me outside, you mentioned LeBron, and he's really not comfortable defending for long periods of time out in the perimeter. He's like you said, a great help side guy. For one possession here or there, he'll get out there, but that's not. He's a power forward center now, and KD's playing a lot of point guard. That's just not something he's comfortable doing, and it wears him down. And they have no second option to guard him. Like Richard Jefferson is their next best option.
Yep.
If this was 10 years ago, that's a really good option, but it's not. And I think that's a huge problem. And I think last night showed why KD, he said all year last year it was going to be a basketball decision. And shows why he understands his game. The difference in last night and in last year is that when he goes by his man, Andre Robertson's guy isn't in the way, or Steven Adams' guy, or whoever, Enes Kanter's guy isn't in the way. He doesn't have non-shooters. And the reason he got those, he just ran right down Broadway and dunked the basketball was Steph Curry's on one side and Klay Thompson's on the other. And Cleveland is trained defensively, run back, sprint back to the shooters because the threes are worth more than two. And now all of a sudden, Kevin Durant, 7 feet tall, going downhill, and nobody stopped the ball. When they did, it was still too late.
Okay, but what adjustments do you see in Game 2? Because Cleveland is not going to roll over. They have to do something. So what is it we see in Game 2?
Well, the first thing was Cleveland tried to establish Kevin Love in the post early in the game, and he couldn't score on Klay Thompson.
Nope.
And so I kind of think they just go away from that. The other problem is Kyrie got tired. Kyrie was great, but he ran out of gas in the third quarter. He was huffing and puffing, and he was trying to hide defensively. He didn't really want the ball offensively. I mean, I kind of think they're just going to have to get more threes out of JR, get some threes out of Kyle Korver. JR hit one early, but then didn't hit any, and Kyle Korver didn't hit any. I think they're going to have to go to their Channing Frye's, Kyle Korver's. They're going to have a game or two where they hit a lot of threes to create more space for LeBron. LeBron was fine, but, there wasn't a lot of help there, and he was good but not great, and just, he scored a lot of points, but they didn't they didn't have the offensive weaponry to keep up with Golden State. I would say that's the biggest adjustment is they're just going to have to get their bench and their shooters to get more involved in the game, because the idea of establishing Kevin Love at times in low post, it doesn't feel like he has the ability to score on Klay or on Durant or on some of those guys. I mean, remember, Klay Thompson was terrible last night. I mean, he was awful, and they won by 20.
Yeah.
I can't imagine what happens when Klay Thompson gets it going.
Well, they were 6 for 27. Draymond Green and Klay Thompson 6 for 27. But as I pointed out, Klay Thompson and Kevin Love are supposed to be the X factor here. Well, if that's the case, Klay Thompson had a horrible game and still canceled out Kevin Love. So that doesn't bode well for the Cavs. We're talking to Doug Gottlieb.
I think they'll make Draymond beat him. I think they'll make Draymond hit a bunch. Remember in Game 7 last year, they were daring Draymond to shoot. He had a bunch of points, but it's because they weren't guarding him. I'd say that's probably defensively the best adjustment, because you can't guard Kevin Durant with one guy. He's just too good. And like you said earlier, and it was a really good point, which I think you guys were that might have gotten lost, was you can't waste LeBron on him because it'll gas him, and then he gives you nothing on offense.
He's Doug Gottlieb, Fox Sports Radio. The commissioner opened up the topic on the herd, saying they'd look at the one and done here. So what is a perfect scenario for all involved, or is there a perfect scenario, Doug?
Well, there's a couple things here. First of all, is a misconception that players can't come straight out and play professionally. They can. They've been able to go to the D-League for years. They don't. And one reason is because of salary, but the big reason is because college basketball is the greatest promotional tool for any of these players' personal brands that you could possibly have. So it actually exists to where you can put yourself in the pro system for a year and then put yourself in the draft. There's been a couple players who have been drafted out of the D-League. This coming year, I believe, the new CBA has greater salaries in the D-League. So you do have an outlet for guys who want to make money, don't want to go to college. I think 2 and done or 3 and done is perfect. I do understand that the Kobes of the world, although Kobe, you remember, you were covering it, Kobe was far from ready. He was awful in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. And could he have used a year of seasoning? Sure. It doesn't hurt the superstars, but I understand that a guy like LeBron, do you have to make him go to college? We're talking about, 1 every decade or 2 every decade. And there are other outlets. Look, the problem with the league, and when you go to the finals, you talk to some of the former players, you're like, look, these guys, it's arrested development. They don't have all-around games. They're missing things in their games. And while GMs and owners want these players to be drafted, the fact is all those coaches and owners, all those coaches and GMs get fired because they're forced to play these kids too early. They don't help you win games. And by the time they kind of come of age, they're on to a new coach and a new GM. Look, the GMs want another year. Honestly, the Players Association wants another year because it allows the current players to make more money to get more minutes. The only people that don't want the 20-year-old rule are the agents. Mm-hmm. And there's a very simple solution to it, okay? It's all you do is you have to change when you're eligible for your second contract should be based upon a certain number of years out of high school, not a certain number of years in the league. If you do that, then you're not holding a guy back from getting that second big, huge contract. Or do it prorated based upon number of minutes played in the league. The agents are the only ones holding this back from happening.
One more item. This really bothers my Danettes, and that's giving somebody dap at a free throw. Whether they make or miss one, you played the game. Why do we need...
I missed plenty of free throws, too. I want to point that out.
And did you get dapped from your teammates when you missed your free throws?
The whole thing is you have to... Dan, you have a free throw routine. When you step back there right by Fritzy's desk and you knock down 75, 80 in a row, you have a routine. You do it the same way every time, right? It's like Steph Curry chewing on his mouthpiece. That's part of his routine. You never screw up the routine. And so that's what it's about. You kind of go through, and you'll see guys, even when they practice, some of them will practice dapping guys up. So it's not close to being the most. Rich Eisen saying it's the most annoying thing in sports and agreeing with, who was it? Was it Paulie?
Paulie. Yeah, Paulie.
Paulie. A wide receiver who points first down on a 5-yard out route when they're down 3 touchdowns. Way more annoying than dapping up a guy.
But that doesn't happen that often. They dap after every free throw, Doug. 80 times a game.
Well, the Duke thing, they're calling a defense and calling an offense. There actually is a reason for that.
So they're the only team that huddles up to call an offense and defense.
No, that's not.
Other teams don't huddle up.
We huddled up when I was in college.
Well, of course you did. You were a coach on the floor.
I can't speak to look, the dapping up of not everybody. Some guys don't like that. Like some guys are germaphobes. They don't like people to touch them.
Okay, what's more annoying, dapping up at the free throw line or Steph Curry chewing on his mouthpiece?
My wife hates Steph Curry chewing his mouthpiece. Like she despises that. Like she cannot. I can't. I don't remember who said that. It was McLovin said it, and she cannot take it. She's like, I can't. Would you text him and tell him? I was like, he's really not going to take my advice.
It's good to hear from you, Doug. How's life there on the West Coast?
It is beautiful. I know you guys were out here a couple weeks ago, and your trip was very well regarded. So it's awesome. It's awesome to be part of the best lineup in sports radio.
Thank you, Bud. Bud, I would dap you if you were right here.
Nice. Thanks.
Thanks, Doug. That's Doug Gottlieb, Fox Sports Radio. That would be, I would dap him if he were here.
The Dan Patrick Show, weekday mornings on Audience.